All right, what is up, everybody? We are live for the official mock draft 3.0 here on the channel. Very excited to be doing this one live with you guys. I did enjoy the first live mock draft that we did a few weeks ago. I think it's fun to do it this way where we can kind of talk out the process for these picks. I don't want to spend 12 minutes picking for Washington. Again, that's for sure. Maybe going to try to keep myself to like a 5-minute timer on every pick. It definitely got a little bit long for those that were listening to me struggle through who to pick for Washington for the last mock draft. But hey, this is a tough year to make those picks 4 through 7. So let's go ahead and get started. We've already got one super chat here from Taliban, which is a South Park reference, by the way. Hang on, I might have double audio coming through. 1 second. There we go. But great South Park reference. I am definitely anti-Towley in my own South Park opinions, but gifting this to start the stream. Sorry I'm late, guys. I had to franchise real quick. We're going to leave that one hanging out there for the chatsters out there. I have very much enjoyed the lore that is in the comments of all of my videos. I'll just say that, but I'm enjoying it. It's very funny. But also Bo and In God We Trust, In God I Trust, joining the official TFG boosters. I will remind you guys, you can get access to Studs and Duds here on the channel. If you're missing that series, all 8 divisions are done, doing our comprehensive recap of NFL performance player review from the last year's season. So shout out to all of the boosters here on the channel. And while we're plugging stuff, I want to remind you guys you can get access to exclusive draft content, my draft guide. I'll be doing 7-round mock drafts for all 8 divisions over on my Patreon. Support the channel in the process. That is patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy. But without further ado, let us begin with the mock draft. This is going to be full on what I would do style. As always, from the PFF mock draft simulator here. And let's just go ahead and get into it. So, Fernando Mendoza at 1. Sorry, Raiders fans. You know, it is what it is this year, but I do plan on going at least down to pick 36 here today. And potentially, depending how long we go, I might do like a sped up round 2 for this mock. We're going to kind of see how things go, but I'm at least committing to getting to pick 36 there. Wouldn't mind making a pick for my Packers at 52. It would be kind of weird to just end the mock draft there, but I'm finally at a point where I feel okay talking second round. You guys know I do my position rankings like group by group, and unfortunately, it's pretty late in the process sometimes. By the time I actually get to like second, third round corners, linebackers, safeties, I'm in the process of putting together my first official top 50 big board right now. So I'm actually at a point where I feel pretty close to being able to talk about the second round. So we'll see how things go here for this one. But enough blabbering. Fernando Mendoza is the pick at 1. And then the pick at 36 is what's really going to matter how we start to build this team around Fernando Mendoza. But at pick number 2 for the New York Jets. And I had a fun debate on the NFL Stock Exchange mock draft with Connor Rogers, big Jets fan, very intimate with this team, with Trevor Sikkema, who's a big Ruben Bain fan. We spent a lot of time debating this pick, and they gave me this pick to start the mock draft. And a week later here, things haven't changed for me. If this is true, what I would do type of situation, I would take Ruben Bain. Now, the question is, do we want to go with what really feels will be the pick here and just go Arvell Reese to keep things consistent and open up those conversations for other teams? I think that's what I'm more comfortable with doing for this mock draft. Just because I do think within the top 5 or 6 picks, it's okay to do that. And also it's okay to kind of be creative a little bit and throw it out there. Like, I actually think Ruben Bain would be the better pick for the Jets. I think that's the player that actually has a better chance of like saving Aaron Glenn's job and getting this defense to be really freaking good next year. I think Arvell Reese maybe will take a little bit more time. Maybe he hits the ground running, but he is a little bit more of a moldable project type. I do see Ruben Bain as any given year. This is a top 3 pick. I think he's a blue chip edge rusher. I think he's going to be up there in your kind of defensive player of the year caliber dudes. Like, I just think he's a real difference maker. I'm willing to overlook the arm length, considering how good this guy's tape is, how bendy he is, how powerful he is, how versatile he is as a run defender, as a pass rusher. You can play him up and down the D-line. I understand that the Jets are a base 3-4 system. The ideal edge is going to be more of that stand-up edge outside linebacker type. And yes, that is Arvell Reese. Number one, I don't think, there's no reason Ruben Bain can't be a base 3-4 outside linebacker for you. He honestly looked just fine when he dropped into coverage. He played over 500 snaps as a stand-up, 2-point stance edge rusher in his time at Miami and looked damn good doing it. So, like, if you're out there in a base 3-4, I don't have any problem with Ruben Bain standing up and defending the run from that stance, but I think they could use him as a 4-eye as well if they wanted to. So I think he provides, honestly, maybe even more scheme versatility in some ways than Arvell Reese. So that would be my pick. I haven't checked the chat to see what people, if people want me to just go full what I would do with the top 2nd pick here. It just really doesn't feel like there's any momentum for Bain to be the pick at number 2, and I think the majority of people would prefer, at least for these first couple of picks, to kind of keep the board as expected to go. And then once we get to like 4, 5, 6, I think it's a whole can of worms that could open up. So I will slot Arvell Reese in here and finish by saying I don't think that's a bad pick if the Jets take Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese should go in the top 3 of this draft for me anyway. I have a very high grade on Reese. I think he's going to be very good. There's reasons people bring up like Micah Parsons with him. So I'm not saying, like, I'm not going to be, for example, this isn't for me like when I slammed the Jags for taking Trayvon Walker, who I just wasn't a huge fan of, over someone like Hutchinson, or I was very high on Kayvon Thibodeau that year as well, unfortunately. Not that Thibodeau's been horrible, but certainly not as good as I thought he would be. But this isn't quite like taking Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, for example. I still think Reese is a good pick for the Jets. I just think Ruben Bain is an even better pick for the Jets. But we will keep it realistic. The chat seems to want it to be that way, to kind of keep things in line with what's expected. So Arvell Reese will be the pick, and if they go anywhere other than that or Ruben Bain, I think it would be a mistake. But then we have the Cardinals at number 3. And we struggled with this in the last mock draft. This is really where the draft in many ways begins and is going to set off a domino effect. I really continue to struggle with who I think they will pick here and also who I would pick here. I would say the 2 most common picks I see here are Sonny Styles and Jeremiah Love. I've had the Sonny Styles conversation a lot. I also just don't think they are going to do that personally. I think NFL teams are much closer to how I view this position. To summarize the Sonny Styles thing as a top 5 pick, he has to be Fred Warner to be worth a top 5 pick. Full stop. He can't just be even like Jack Campbell or Jordan Brooks or, Tremaine Edmonds. I've brought up the fact that Tremaine Edmonds was a very similarly viewed linebacker prospect, 6'5", 4.5 40, freaky traits, young to the position, all that stuff. He was in a better draft class, so he ended up going with like the 15th pick or whatever. Tremaine Edmonds and Sonny Styles are very close in terms of who they were as prospects. I think Styles a little better, but it's close. And Tremaine Edmonds is like a top 15 linebacker in the league. If you take Sonny Styles and he becomes Tremaine Edmonds, which isn't a horrible outcome, that's not even close to worth the top 5 pick. And the other thing is with all the Fred Warner comps, Fred Warner isn't great because he runs a 4.44 and has a 42-inch vertical jump. Fred Warner is great because of this. He's a very fluid athlete, and he's got that kind of lengthy profile you look for, but it's this that makes Fred Warner, and for the podcast people, I'm pointing to my brain, you need rare IQ, instincts, zone feel, all of it to become Fred Warner. There is a chance that it happens with Sonny Styles, but it's maybe a 10%, 5% chance, and that's maybe optimistic. All of the other outcomes, this just ain't worth it. From a contract perspective, we talked about Tremaine Edmunds. You can go out and get a Tremaine Edmunds level free agent every year, whether it was Bobby Okereke for the Giants a few years ago. I think of, I almost said Kaleki Asemele. Foya Setaluakon when he signed with the Jags, or this year, Tremaine Edmunds. You can go out and pay that guy $15 million or less. It's honestly less. It's like $10 to $11 million because the position just isn't valued that high. And then you can use a top 5 pick on a lineman, on a wide receiver, on an edge rusher that get paid $45 million a year. So the value proposition is tough. It's a position with a high bust rate. That's the other thing. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I just don't see Sonny Styles actually going this high. So he's not going to be the pick there for me, and I don't think that's going to happen in real life. I don't think it's going to be Jeremiah Love for the Cardinals either. They loaded up that running back room at this point. They now have James Conner coming back. I don't think you fully give up on Trey Benson after the injury this year, and they signed Tyler Algier. That would be kind of weird if they spent the 3rd overall pick on Jeremiah Love. So for me, I think it's either draft Ruben Bain or explore a trade down. And because we're alone here, we can explore trades. I would love to do a trade for the Cardinals. There is one trade that is on my mind that I think would be fun to play out here, and that would be the Kansas City Chiefs moving up to get Ruben Bain, that next generation of a great pass rusher in Kansas City, someone that's going to come in and help them win right now as well. And they have the added draft capital now because of the Trent McDuffie trade. I think it's actually somewhat realistic. And I love that for the Cardinals because you can come down and then all of a sudden, okay, are we thinking about Mansour Delane or David Bailey or an offensive lineman at 9 in this draft? Makes way more sense than taking them at 3. And for the Chiefs, I think it makes total sense. So I don't know what chat thinks about this other than laughing at my to summarize rant where I ranted about Sonny Styles for 10 minutes. But we're gonna make this trade, and I think it's a fun trade. I think it's a realistic trade. It's always unlikely when you predict trades in a mock draft, but I think it makes a ton of sense. It would be, I think, 3 for 9, obviously. I think you do give up pick 29 to make this move, and that should get you pretty close. We could actually pull up the draft chart value here. Give me 1 second. We could pull this up and try to get this exact. So let me drag this on over. So 29 is 640 points of value. That's almost exactly 2,000 points of value with 9 plus 29. And the 3rd pick is worth 2,200. So that alone gets you pretty damn close. I think you do that. And then I think of your Kansas City, who now they have 2 third-round picks. They have their own, and they have pick 109, which is the 4th round. So I think they can actually, I think you're probably actually talking about giving them a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft. And probably, because that's right, they have 2 third-rounders next year. That's what I was thinking of. So they have the Rams 3rd rounder and their own. So I think we're going to give your Rams 3rd rounder and I think pick 148 for pick 3. And then I want I have enough picks still in this draft because even after this, they still will have pick 40, pick 74, pick 109, and 3 more day 3 picks, which the podcast people are like, what is going on? But you can see all this on the screen for the video people. I think we're going to get a 6th rounder back, but it's a pretty massive trade, and I'm absolutely doing that if I'm the Cardinals. An extra pick next year, you get an extra first this year, and pick a player of similar value at 9. And I love this for the Chiefs. So we're going to do it. I think it's a fun, realistic trade. And then for the Chiefs, it is going to be Ruben Bain at pick number 3. All right. Let's go to the Titans with pick number 4. Another team that's very challenging to pick for. With the Fred Warner comps on Sonny Styles, there's going to be a lot of people that think that would make sense with Robert Saleh. And I'll admit, if I think there's a 7% chance that Sonny Styles becomes Fred Warner, if that becomes a 12% chance that he becomes Fred Warner because he's pairing him with Robert Saleh, I think that's a better sell. So I do think the Titans, as far as taking a linebacker, is in play. I still think a lot of the concerns about the positional value and still wanting to give Cam Ward everything he needs to succeed around him applies here. This is probably my least favorite team to pick for. I think Jeremiah Love has been very commonly predicted here. I don't think that's crazy. I do still like Tyjae Spears. I think Tony Pollard can play, but those guys don't stop you from taking Jeremiah Love. So those guys are in play. I think taking a wide receiver too would make sense. They did bring Ridley back on a renegotiated contract, but I don't think you're counting on Calvin Ridley, who's a lot older than people realize, because he was like low-key. Calvin Ridley was like 24 when he came into the league. He missed the year for the gambling suspension. I'm going to pull up the Our Lads here. I mean, they gave Wan'Dale $20 million, but you can still absolutely take a wide receiver here. And I do think they just cut. Oh, never mind. Ignore that. But I lost my train of thought. Seeing Jackson Smith and Jigba get $42 million a year, that's why you might strongly consider taking a wide receiver, because you might look ahead of this and be like, all right, Calvin Ridley's going to be gone after a year. We like Iomanor as a 2 or a 3. Look, Wan'Dale on that contract is pretty crazy, but he's a slot guy anyway. I don't think it's crazy at all to drop like a Carnell Tate into this thing, which just feels like taking Carnell Tate at 4 isn't as crazy compared to taking like Omar Cooper Jr., even though I have Omar Cooper ranked above Carnell Tate. But I do think there's still that perception of getting that big-bodied X outside wide receiver is harder to get than someone like Omar Cooper or Mekhi Lemon. So they're a really hard team, man. I want to keep this thing moving. I also don't think Mansour Delane is the. Never mind. I forget that they threw out $40 million for Cordell Flott and Alante Taylor. But I will say I finished Mansour Delane's write-up. That's over on my Patreon right now, and I really like Mansour Delane, but they don't need corner after what they did in free agency. If Ruben Bain is here, it makes things so easy, but he's gone, obviously. I think it's either going to be David Bailey for them or Sonny Styles. I just don't... I'm sorry. I'm doing the same thing I did with the Washington pick. But it's good to talk all this stuff out. Maybe it is just Jeremiah Love. Maybe it does just all come back to Jeremiah Love, to the Titans at 4. Like I said, neither of these running backs, Tony Pollard or Tyjae Spears, are stopping you from taking them. They do need guard, but it's probably too early to take one of these linemen. Let's go Jeremiah Love, chat. We're going to go Jeremiah Love. It's a can't-miss pick. You're locking in running back for the next 10 years. when you're debating between that and a linebacker, the position value conversation changes. And again, I do just think it's a little early for the caliber of player that Vega Awane or Francisco Mauigoa are. And it's just nail your first pick with Robert Saleh in this new regime and give Cam Ward a better run game, better, consistent receiving option out of the backfield. And I don't think Titans fans are too mad about that, but they're a really hard team to pick for. So Love is gone. In a lot of my mock drafts, he's fallen, so it's good to see him go early in a scenario like this. And by the way, thank you for all the super chats that have come in. Every 8 picks, I'm going to stop for like a super chat break and answer super chats. So thank you guys for those coming in. I see them. I just want to kind of let the content flow that way. So the Giants are up at 5. I'm going to think for a second while I have a sip of tea. If you haven't been able to tell from my content this week, I have been battling a really bad cold. So shout out the throat coat. Tea has helped me get through the week. Giants at 5. For me, we are getting to that point where it's like easy to just make this a true what I would do situation. I think offensive line really creeps up with Jeremiah Love gone at this point. You have linebackers with the Giants. I know a lot of people are going to say Sonny Styles. I mean, they could do it, don't get me wrong, but they did the thing that I talk about, a reason why you don't take Sonny Styles. They paid Tremaine Edmonds, who's a perfectly good linebacker. Tremaine Edmonds, I think, he is, if you talk about bell curve potential outcomes, he's a 50% chance median mean outcome for Sonny Styles is he's a top 15 linebacker, really athletic guy. Obviously a chance he's more than Tremaine Edmonds, but they paid him. And look, Micah McFadden missed all of last year with an injury. He's a really nice LB2 that I, honestly, in a contract year, I'm not quite ready to give up on either. If I'm a Giants fan and we take a linebacker, I'm just like, okay, whatever. I certainly would much rather them, especially with Jeremiah Love gone, either take a wide receiver or an offensive lineman here. And I do think getting the offensive lineman now makes more sense for them in a deep wide receiver class. And I made this point in the Stock Exchange show. I think it really resonates with me. You have Malik Neighbors. You have the funnel the offense through alpha, elite number 1 guy. It's much easier to fill in with second, third round to get a good number 2 next to him. And you do have Darnell Mooney, Darius Slayton, Calvin Austin. And Isaiah Likely. They have ancillary pieces already. I look at Aaron Stinney and John Michael Schmitz and John Runyon on the interior of that offensive line, and I'm like, we got to do something here because Schmitz is in the last year of his deal and hasn't been great. He's been fine. Stinney shouldn't be starting, and John Runyon's not going to be here forever. I think taking a guard for them makes the utmost sense. And I actually really do like Francisco Mauigoa for them. He's been very open about the idea that he's cool with playing guard. I got through his full tape watch just 2 days ago, and I really like his flexibility to be a guard or a tackle. He was a much better athlete than I kind of expected going into watching him. But the fact that he's so open about, like, I will happily play guard, yet with Andrew Thomas, you guys know I'm the biggest of Andrew Thomas fans. The guy misses like a third of the year every single year. If that's going to keep happening, Mauigoa can step in and play left tackle for you. But he's going to be your starting guard, which has outstanding value. This feels like a Harbaugh pick. So we're going to go Mauigoa, who will be our starting right guard and honestly, like, backup tackle. So there's the pick at 5. Okay, Cleveland Browns up at number 6. And I will say this for the Browns. Almost every single mock draft I do for them where I take a tackle at 6, I end up disappointed by the wide receiver I end up at 24. Because for me, just to kind of for draft strategy a little bit here, and I hope the Browns, well, they have their own evaluations and everything, but I look at these top 4 wide receivers. They're all awesome, like top 20 caliber wide receivers, and then I see a drop off in tier from those top 4. However, at tackle, honestly, for me, and it's fairly similar on the board here, but I look at Fano, Freeling, Maui Noah, and if Maui Noah was there at 6, it might make things a little bit easier. But especially Fano, Freeling, Blake Miller, if I can get any of those 3, and even down to Maxie Honecker, who's a really fun tackle prospect, any of those 4, honestly, if I can get one of those at pick 24, I'm happy. Like, I feel like either any of those is kind of a reach at 6 in a way that I don't think at wide receiver. So if you're trying to gameplay the draft here, I think you take the wide receiver at 6. They spent a bunch of money. Like, they also spent so much on the O-line, and it's not like they overspent, but they brought in so many guys. They aren't like screwed if they don't even get a tackle, right? Because DeJuan Jones is not your long-term plan at tackle. He's probably the 32nd best left tackle in the league. So you want to replace him there. But, like, they could survive if they don't get the tackle. So I'm going to go wide receiver here. And it does just feel like Carnell Tate's going to be the first one taken. When I look at their room, none of these guys are really long-term solutions. You kind of just take the best wide receiver. You have the hometown Ohio State connection, well, home state with Carnell Tate. But I will say this, Mekhi Lemon is my number 1 wide receiver. I think he's got a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I actually kind of lean towards taking Mekhi Lemon, especially because I still kind of like Cedric Tillman. I think Cedric Tillman can do a lot of the stuff Carnell Tate does. A guy that can get open for Shedeur a little bit quicker, be more of that reliable short to intermediate. I think that's better for Shedeur or whatever young quarterback ends up in here. Despite the Ohio State connection, I'm going to go with my number 1 wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon, to the Cleveland Browns at number 6. All right. For the Commanders at number 7. Can really go in so many different directions. They were busy in free agency, but not a lot of what they did is going to stop you from doing a whole lot. I think you probably don't go edge unless Ruben Bain is there. Like, they gave all that money to Odafe Owe. They bring in Chase on. They still have Dorrance Armstrong, Charles Omenihu. I don't think you have to go edge here. You certainly could. I will say, like, Sonny Styles next to Leo Chanel would be such a fun linebacker room. Depends what they think about Jordan McGee. Luvu kind of moves around. You could get all 3 of those guys on the field pretty easily. I do think Downs in that safety room would make a lot of sense. I like that they bring in Nick Cross, but, Will Harris, Quan Martin, those guys aren't stopping me from taking Downs. I also do come back to wide receiver for them as well. So I think for me, after talking all that out, I'm between Styles, Downs, and Carnell Tate. Maybe even Omar Cooper, but I think I would lose a lot of people if I took Omar Cooper at 7. But I do think Carnell Tate being an X in there would make a lot of sense. And the reason I gravitated towards Omar Cooper, I think, is because I'm still imagining the Cliff Kingsbury offense that would love to have an Omar Cooper Jr. for the bubble screens and the run after catch ability. But things are going to be a little bit different now and more of a Shanahan style system. So I think, and look, Cooper maybe even is a better fit in a Shanahan style system than Carnell Tate, but Tate absolutely fits in that system as well. They're just different. That's what I always say about these top guys. So I think for me, because Terry, you don't have your second round pick either, though. That's why it's so hard. I was just about to say you can wait till the second to get a wide receiver you like, but they don't have their second round pick. And I think that almost makes you want to take wide receiver more, right? If you had a 40th pick, you could justify, we'll take Styles here and come back and get whoever. But I think we go Carnell Tate. You got your two outside guys in him and Terry McLaurin. Burks plays a lot from the slot. McCaffrey plays a lot from the slot. Diami Brown can play everywhere. You got Chigo Okonkwo. Who? Taliban says, I promise I won't take forever with Washington. Yet here we are. All right. Here's the pick, guys. I know this is kind of a U-turn from this entire conversation. I'm glad we talked everything out, but we're taking Caleb Downs at number 7. He's the best player available on the board for me. Difference-making safety. You pair him with Cross and have some depth in that wide receiver room. I kind of agree that like Tate's not a perfect fit in that wide receiver room as long as you think Terry's going to play for a while. So the pick is Caleb Downs. Raise the floor of that defense that was so slow, so bad on the back end. And look, Nick Cross is not a bona fide superstar either. So there's your pick at number 7 is Caleb Downs to Washington. All right. Hey, we are 30 minutes into this thing and we're about twice the speed we were going at last time. I think we were at the hour-long mark by pick 10 last time. But let's pick for the Saints, and with not going Carnell Tate for the Commanders, I think that makes this pick pretty easy for the Saints to take the best X wide receiver in this draft. I love how he fits in this room because you've got Chris Olave is your move Z number 1 speed playmaker, do it all guy. You've got really good intermediate slot options with Vele and Juwan Johnson. Yeah, I always get Juwan Johnson and Juwan Jennings in my mind. They twist them together because they're like super similar players actually. But you've got everything else except for that like trustworthy, chain-moving, back-shoulder guy for Tyler Shuck. I think he fits his skill set to a T. I would love to see this offense now with a pretty damn good O-line. Tyler Shuck, Travis Etienne, Etienne, and this wide receiver group would be really fun to watch. So that's a pretty damn easy pick to make for the Saints at 8. All right, I'm liking this mock draft so far. And, man, for the Cardinals, this is why you trade down, dude, because other than taking Ruben Bain, you might have been thinking about these top 3 players staring at us here in Styles, Bailey, and Delane anyway. And you got all these picks, so it's a no-brainer. And honestly, I love it for the Chiefs, dude. I think Ruben Bain on the Chiefs would be absolutely incredible. I think every fan of the Broncos and the Raiders and even all the way out to the Ravens and the Bills, they're like, we really let the Chiefs get Ruben Bain? Like, come on. Not to mention he's just the perfect fit for Spags' defense. But before we pick for the Cardinals here, we're going to do Super Chats, and I'm going to have a quick sip of tea. All right. Thank you, everybody in the chat, enjoying the mock draft. And for the Super Chats here, so from Chris Anthony, I've been thinking about the Jets taking Love at 2. That would be a mistake, in my opinion. Breece Hall is more than good enough, and they're just not in a position to take a running back. They're just not. I know they have a good offensive line, but look, Breece is more than good enough to not do that. Brendo says Ravens trade a first next year and pick 45 to the Jets for pick 16 and package together to get Vega Fano plus Lemon/Tyson. So you get a wide receiver and a guard. I mean, if you really want to go for it, I guess that seems... I mean, the funny thing about the Ravens is it's like they're already kind of playing with house money. They tried to go all in for Max Crosby, and then they basically got mostly the same guy in Trey Hendrickson and got to keep their first-round picks. So why not go like crazy aggressive? If that's the thinking, I mean, we saw the Saints do that a couple years ago, right? They were stupid to do it because the guy they had to get was Trevor Penning, and then that let the freaking Eagles get Jalen Carter. As a result, I don't think it would be that level of a mistake, but we have seen teams kind of, with a quarterback on the back nine, get a little bit more aggressive. So I don't think it's insane if they want to kind of shift their philosophy, Brendo, and be a little bit more aggressive. I like where your head's at, get a guard and a wide receiver for the Ravens, or even drop another pass rusher like Messidor in there with one of those picks. But Alejandro says, how do you view this Chiefs roster to trade a haul for one player with lots of holes? Questions in your roster at wide receiver, corner, D-line, right tackle. Feels like a terrible process. So Alejandro's criticizing the Chiefs trade here, but like I said, the Chiefs still have a lot of picks if we go back to it. Even after the trade, they still have pick 40. They still have pick 74. They have 109, 169, 179, 210. You still have 6 picks. Like, you're still picking like everybody else in this draft. And this is a team that, especially if you talk about needs at corner, they fill in their cornerback room better than anybody in the league. And I don't think the roster is as porous as you're suggesting, Alejandro. I actually think if they roll out next year and their secondary, I would love to see them get another safety in there, which, again, I think you can do in the second or third round of this draft. But if they roll out with Noel Williams and Christian Fulton and Cater Coho as your slot, Alohi Gilman back there, you know, Shamari Connor and Jaden Hicks, I'm not fully writing those guys off. That's a decent competition for your second safety room or your second safety spot. So I'd love to get another safety in there, but you're fine at linebacker. We dropped Ruben Bain onto the D line that now has George Karlaftis. You've got Ruben Bain. You've got Ashton Gelati. You've got plenty of edge players. You still have Felix Anudike-Uzomah as an edge 4 in that group. At D tackle, I mean, you've got Chris Jones, Kyrus Tonga, Omar Norman-Lott, second-round pick from last year. Yeah, we could certainly use like a DT4, but we got picks to do that. So other than safety, the defense is in a pretty good spot. And then you look at the offense, you know, I don't think their tackle room is in a dire situation. I don't. Like, Jalen Moore is okay for now as a tackle. Like, they keep doing the Travis Kelce thing. They brought in Kenneth Walker. The wide receiver room could use some help, but like I said, you got second, third round picks. It's a tremendously deep wide receiver room. I think I would actually push back on your comment. I think the Chiefs are uniquely equipped. They're already in striking distance to get a blue chip, basically a replacement for Chris Jones, not at the same position, but the same idea of getting that alpha number 1 rusher that Chris Jones isn't going to be that guy forever. You get a year or two of them together. But it's the perfect time to kind of start passing that baton. You're already in striking distance. You just made this big trade. Go make it happen. I think it actually makes a ton of sense for the Chiefs. But great super chat. Sports Debate says, I'm cool with the Giants going O-line in the first, but trade down for Vega. Doesn't make sense to reach for a tackle to force him out of his natural position because we already have 2 great tackles for the time they're cheap. I guess I'm less concerned about like the idea of moving Maui Noah to guard. Like, I think that transition for him is going to be pretty seamless. He's been pretty open about wanting to do it. And I will stand by what I said. Look, having a backup plan for Andrew Thomas is not a bad idea, sports debate. Like, I love Andrew Thomas. The guy has missed how much time over the last 3 years, dude? Like, if we pull this up, dude, he played 576 snaps in 2023, 416 snaps in 2024, and last year he missed the last month of the year. He played 800 snaps. I mean, yeah, on paper you don't need a left tackle, but the ability to just slide Maui Noa out to tackle when those games happen is incredibly invaluable. So that's actually why I went with Maui Noa over Vega Wane. Otherwise, I would just take Vega Wane at 5, but I actually think Maui Noa makes more sense for them. Because, by the way, Vega Wane is my highest rated lineman right now, by the way. But Maui Noa can play both. So there's just different fits. From Jaron, from watching Tate and the OSU tight ends, if you have yet, I have not watched the tight ends yet. Do you have any early thoughts on Julian Sain and, of course, Jeremiah Smith? Don't really have any thoughts on Julian Sain. Jeremiah Smith looks every single bit as good as advertised. Like, I don't think Julio Jones comps are unfair. Yeah, dude, I can't wait. I can't wait for him to come out next year. And then from Red Sea, if the Cardinals don't take Fano at 9, you did it wrong. Also curious what we got in the trade down. Missed that part. Yeah, definitely go back. We got a haul for the Cardinals. We got an absolute haul. But all right, back to the simulator. Cardinals at 9. And we got options, man. This is a fun spot to be. Definitely going offensive line. Like, that to me is clear. Red Sea would be disappointed if it's not Fano, but this gives me an opportunity to kind of tease my tackle analysis a little bit here, which I've been really getting into these guys in the last week. It's probably going to be my next video. Will be offensive linemen. We'll see. Just scheduling-wise, it might make more sense, but just to kind of tease some of that stuff here, I like this tackle class a lot. I think, honestly, Fano, Freeling, Blake Miller, and maybe a slight cut behind that with E. Honecker, I don't think any of those guys would be crazy at pick 9. That's just how I view these guys. I think Fano's really good. Fano's really balanced. I think he could be a good tackle. I think he'd be a great guard. I actually do think his build, he's a strong guy. I actually think him as a guard might make more sense for Fano, but I think he could play tackle. Freeling has just crazy upside. A lot of like mental mistakes with Monroe Freeling. A little more raw. A little bit more like 5 really good plays in a row, and then he just kind of screws up, whether it's his technique or a mental mishap. But, you know, there's a lot of Colton Miller comps for him for a reason. Blake Miller, to me, is the most pro-ready tackle out of those 4. Even ahead of Fano. Like, I think Fano is a kind of more balanced, the play strengths, like the anchor is a little bit better. But dude, Blake Miller's pass sets, like how good he is as a run blocking tackle. I think he's a really complete player. I don't think he gets enough love in this draft. And then Max Honecker would be a ton of fun as well, just as a high upside guy, a local guy. I would be cool with any of those 4 picks, but Fano does feel right to me. I think, I mean, I could just be crazy and take Blake Miller here and surprise the world. Because he's, I could see Blake Miller being a higher upside tackle than Fano, who's got, look, there's a lot of short arm debate. I think some players' short arms impact you more than others. Fano's, the short arms do impact him. His strikes come in wide a lot. He just misses with his strikes a lot where he's just not quite in range. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the Cardinals depth chart here. Honestly, man, when I think of the Arizona Cardinals, A lot of thoughts going down in my head right now. Blake Miller would help you the most right now. But I might go to Monroe Freeling, who I don't think is that far behind Blake Miller and does have more upside. He's incredibly strong and athletic. I think he's got better play strength than Blake Miller. And he's a year behind Blake Miller, so I think a lot of that mental stuff is just, it's going to get there. It's very coachable. I mean, there's just little pros and cons with all these top three guys. But I think the pick for me is going to be Monroe Freeling, who I want to pull up my draft guide here without spoiling everything and giving away all that exclusive access for the people paying for the draft guide here. But Freeling is my highest ranked tackle. So look, this is spoilers for the tackle rankings, but my top four, and they're all very tightly knit, is Maui Noah, Freeling at 2, Blake Miller at 3, and Fano at 4. And it just kind of depends what you're looking for, as we've talked about. So my next best tackle is Freeling. Cardinals have time to be a little bit more patient with him. It's not like he's got, if he gets Jacoby Brissett killed for a year, it's not like you've got a rookie quarterback in there that you don't want to have to pair with, maybe learning moments with a rookie tackle. So we're going to go Freeling at 9 after the trade down. I like it. Okay. Bengals at 10. Sonny Styles there. Out of Ohio. There's definitely questions about pairing him with a room of rookie linebackers. And that being, you're gonna have some hiccups when you have two young linebackers in there. Now, hopefully Demetrius Knight can take that step in year 2, but I don't want to go through another year of Barrett Carter. I think that's their biggest need on the defense as well, is linebacker, because I actually kind of like their corner room, other than nickel corner, but we don't need to take a nickel corner here at 10. Their safety room, Jordan Battle, Brian Cook, I can work with that. I like what their D-line is, they got work to do, but Murphy, Stewart, Mafe, BJ Hill, they signed Jonathan Allen, Chris Jenkins, TJ Slayton. They got pieces. We obviously don't need to go offense. So I think Sonny Styles is a pretty easy pick for the Bengals at 10. And that's definitely a spot where I'm excited about that pick. Whereas if he goes top 5, I just have some questions if it's going to be worth it. But I think that's a good sweet spot for him at 10. All right, the Dolphins at 11. This is pretty chalky, but I do believe in it, and that's Mansour Delane. I think he's really good. He's going to be probably the 7th or 8th best player on my big board when all is said and done. The fact that he came out and ran in the 4.3s was just a cherry on top of extraordinary hip fluidity, enough run defense, great zone IQ. I'm not taking David Bailey to pair with Chop Robinson. I think you could certainly think about a guard, and that would probably be my other pick, would be Vega, but it's really hard to find a cornerback prospect like Delane, and it's chalky for a reason. I think we can find wide receiver later. We have the 29th pick, but I don't think you're getting anything close to Delane at 29, so there's the pick at 11. And then we got the Cowboys at pick number 12. David Bailey's a pretty common pick for them. The Texas connection. Feels like they like their speed rushers. That seems like a pretty easy pick to make here if he's there for you at 12. You got Gary, obviously. You've got Donovan Ezeraku. But I actually kind of like Bailey as more of a designated pass rusher immediately. I don't think he needs to be a 3-down player for you. And honestly, Rashawn Gary's been better as a run defender than he has as a pass rusher anyway. So if we're rotating these guys a decent amount where one of those three is fresh and healthy for 3rd down between Gary, Ezeraku and Bailey. I think that makes sense. Looks like they brought Sam Williams back, but I don't think that really changes your perspective. They did sign Jalen Thompson, so the safety room is okay. I don't think they want to invest in offensive line here, maybe at 20, but I think it's pretty easy pick to go David Bailey to the Cowboys at number 12. And again, a player I'm lower on is David Bailey, but 12 to 20 for David Bailey, I think is perfectly reasonable for how I have him ranked. I've got my questions, right, about certainly the run defense, but I think he needs to show a lot more development with the pass rush plan. He's got that beautiful spin move, but I want to see him use it more often. All of the kind of counter moves and stuff is all there in flashes, so you're betting on him to put that all together. The thing is, he's going to have to if he's going to keep being successful, and that's going to force him to develop his technique and his pass rush plan in a way that he just didn't have to against the competition he faced. I mean, he was able to get away with it in college. Just run around the outside corner of the tackle, occasionally run through him, and when you feel like it, try a spin move. Well, he's going to stall out more. I think David Bailey's probably going to be, he's going to get you like 8 splash play sacks in his rookie year. The Cowboys fans are going to be like, oh my God, he's a rookie at 8 sacks, but you're going to look at it and he had like 21 pressures. I mean, clip that. I would not be surprised if David Bailey has 21 pressures, a horrible pass rush win rate, like pressure rates at like 7%, but he's going to get 8 sacks because when he wins like that. But that could force him to develop the rest of his pass rushing bag. And the good thing is, like, those moves are in there. It's more about the approach. You know, how am I setting moves up? When am I countering? When am I using different moves? That is what's really going to help him because as I've said for months and as we saw in that clip, he doesn't really have the true bend of a speed rusher. I don't think he can just run around the corner against NFL tackles and be a dominant edge rusher like he was in college. So, yeah, pretty nice, logical pick there for the Cowboys. Now we have the Rams at pick 13. So I always gravitate to Omar Cooper Jr. for them just because he's such a good fit and like their type, someone that wins short to intermediate, run after catch, he run blocks. I think him and Puka as the long-term wide receivers makes a ton of sense. If Puka doesn't keep doing weird stuff off the field and has an Antonio Brown character arc, we're a long way from that, I hope, but can Puka just like be a normal person, please? So I do gravitate towards that, but what else would make sense for them? Would Dylan Thieneman make sense for them? Because they brought Cam Curl back, so that wouldn't really make sense. I love Dylan Thieneman, dude, but that wouldn't make sense. Cam Kinchins is good. They probably aren't looking at the D-line at this point, especially with, like David Bailey gone there. I do think taking a tackle would make sense for them, and they don't have that extra first-round pick now. I think Warren McClendon showed really good stuff. Honestly, what you could do too is get Steve Avila back on the center train and take Vega Ioane here. But I think with Devontae getting up there in age, I don't think we need to overthink this. I think Omar Cooper is exactly what they like. He'll be your wide receiver 3, which will be a contributor. If they want to be an 11 personnel, great. Like, you are set up. But these guys will all contribute. He's an easy guy to get the ball to. He played that role at Indiana, right? Like, he's not going to throw a fit about being just a part of the picture for year one. And then, Devontae, when he's gone, you'll be able to pass that torch off to Omar Cooper. So that's going to be the pick at 13. Okay, the Ravens at pick 14. Vega Ioane has been like the chalkiest of chalky picks to the Ravens at 14. It got to the point where I was finishing his eval the other day, and it was like I just started picturing him in a Baltimore Ravens jersey. I don't think it's crazy at all. I got a really big grade on him. I think he's a really freaking good player. So that would be an easy pick to make. I know a lot of Ravens fans want some wide receiver help, some edge rush help, I think is reasonable for them. I think Ravens fans are very high on Mike Green. I don't know that I want to count on him as my edge 2 this year. Someone also bringing up Kenyon Sadiq would also be a great pick for the Ravens. I've made that pick before. They are in a really good spot with this draft where they're going to be able to fill a big need, at a huge value in this range, whether it's Ioane, Sadiq, one of these wide receivers, or someone like Akeem Mesidor, I think would really propel this defense. Like, if you're like me and you look at Mike Green as edge 2 and you're like, you're not really getting anything unless he takes a huge leap, that's a big problem. Like, you want someone other than Henderson to be able to win off the edge. But I don't think that's the route you go if you have the options to go with Vega Ioane or even Kenyon Sadiq, because I think those guys are even better prospects as well. So this is where I kind of don't hate the idea of the Ravens being aggressive and just going for it this year with kind of house money. We got that super chat earlier. I don't hate it. Maybe when we get to the Jets pick at 16, we could have some conversations there, because the Jets are obviously trying to load up on all of the picks for next year's draft. Something to think about. But I am going to take the chalky pick of Vega Ioane here. I think the guard need is glaring. They signed one, right? Yeah, they brought John Simpson back, but Andrew Voorhees is your left guard. And by the way, you got a center problem. So I don't know who's playing center for you either. We're not taking that center here in the first round, but we got to start somewhere, right? So that's a bigger need than tight end is. I do think, I definitely think Kenyon Sadiq is a wonderful wild card piece to drop into that offense that would unlock a lot of different things. But yeah, Vega Ioane is chalk for a reason, and that's going to be the pick at 14. And they still need a center. Yeah, man. I can't believe they didn't just franchise tag Linderbaum or something. Make it work. I mean, how you let that guy out the door is beyond me, especially when you don't have a backup plan. But neither here nor there. Bucks at 15. I always gravitate towards pass rush for them. I do think Kenyon Sadiq in that offense would be really fun. Pass catchers is a quiet need for them, and the fact that they brought Cade Otton back is why I like Kenyon Sadiq for them, because he can be a big slot, a 12 personnel guy. This offense has those same roots that we've seen with the Rams and these 12 personnel offenses. That's what you're taking Kenyon Sadiq to be a starting tight end for 12 personnel and to be a starting slot. But Godwin and Igbuka kind of operate in the slot, so there's a little bit redundancy there. I think Akeem Mesidor is probably the pick. It just depends if you're the Bucs front office, do you think you are close, or are you eyeing more of a long-term rebuild here? They are one of these teams that they're kind of on that shaky bridge of, do we go for it, or is this thing kind of, are the foundations kind of falling apart here before we realize it? And if you take Mesidor, you're kind of putting the pedal down a little bit. But I do think for the 2026 Bucks, Mesidor helps you the most. You could also just take Jordan Tyson. and have an awesome wide receiver core once again. Because, like, look, Godwin is there, but, I mean, he's one of these pieces that's kind of getting faded. You lose Mike Evans. Igbuka was, look, we crowned Igbuka very early last year. And I think just assuming he is the wide receiver one of the future locked and loaded is dangerous. I think Tyson kind of helps you thread that needle of trying to compete now while also being a good long-term piece for you. And I know they have McMillan, but I think McMillan's a 3. I don't think McMillan's a 2. Tez Johnson's not someone I'm trusting as a full-time starter. I think Tyson's the pick. Why did Igbuka regress? So it's a great question. I haven't really talked about it, but look, Igbuka in the first 8 weeks was a contested catch monster. He was contorting for these incredible catches that were always these perfectly placed balls from Baker Mayfield, keeping his feet down in the sideline, tracking the ball over the shoulder. He just stopped making those catches, and Baker stopped putting those balls on the money. But Igbuka had horrible drops. He stopped winning those tough catches. And when you took that away, people were saying it in the first half of the year, but no one put any stock in it because you were just a hater if you pointed it out. But Igbuka wasn't really separating when he was going off for the first 8 weeks. But he was making all these absurd catches. Those went away. He started to drop the football, and he was in the bottom third of starting wide receivers in the league for the last 2/3 of the season last year. And that's being favorable. He was really bad. So I think he can bounce back, but he needs to bounce back. And I think people saw the first 6 or 7 weeks with him and are just like, oh yeah, they have Igbuka, they're fine at wide receiver. I disagree that it's that simple. I think there's definitely a world where, look, Igbuka was a really good prospect. I thought he was a first-round caliber guy. My pro comp on him was supercharged Jacoby Myers. But most people didn't view Emeka Egbuka as a bona fide number one wide receiver, right? That wasn't really the projection on him. He comes out and has these monster weeks while Godwin's hurt and Mike Evans is out of the lineup. And everyone's just like, oh, Ohio State, number one wide receiver. He's the next JSN. And then it was very quickly hold on. Maybe this guy is more of a Jacoby Myers. So he'll be a fun player to kind of watch and see where he lands next year. I think Jordan Tyson's a good pick for the Bucs here at 15. I do. I think he gives you something different from Igbuka too. From a separation and traditional field stretching ability, I think he's a really good fit there. So we'll go Tyson. Injury risk, but I think once you get to 15 and beyond, and when the other wide receivers are all gone, which they are, I mean, if you could get any of the other guys, that'd be phenomenal. If you could just replace Mike Evans with Carnell Tate in this draft at 15, send that pick in. But I like Tyson, how he fits there. All right, the Jets at pick 16. We tease the potential of maybe the Ravens getting super aggressive here, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think we'll make the pick for the Jets here. But I think it's an interesting idea, that super chat we got. I really do. I think the Ravens could be aggressive because of how the Max Crosby thing traded out. They get those first-round picks back for free in many ways. And the Jets kind of loading up for a QB next year, but they already have 3 first-rounders next year, so I don't think you have to do that. But let's try and make the best pick possible for them at 16. So they do have a hole at guard. Well, not really. I think you could consider taking a guard, which in this case would be Fano for me, because Josh Myers is not a forever plan, I don't think, and Dylan Parham is decent. I'm not going to go that route, but it's something to at least suggest. I would love it if we could have gotten one of those wide receivers, but all four are gone. So that's what really makes this harder. They extended Jeremy Ruckert. I think they like their tight end room. I think it's got to be corner, right? Or Thieneman. So it depends what you think of Jermod McCoy. I'm still waiting to complete the eval. I'm going to probably get to him this evening. It depends what you think about the whole idea of him not playing for a year, not doing much in this pre-draft process. It's between him and Thieneman. I will say this. Aaron Glenn got to take advantage of having that incredible safety duo with Detroit. I mean, they had an unbelievable year there with Brian Branch and brain fart, Kirby Joseph. I mean, I don't think that, and I love Malachi Moore. They brought Andre Sisco back on a 1-year kind of backup contract. I love Malachi Moore, but dude, I'm just saying this. I'm putting the finishing touches on my Dylan Thieneman write-up. He's going to be a top 10 player in this draft for me. I think he's the best free safety prospect that I've seen since I've been doing this in 2017, which was before Earl Thomas came out. That was the Malik Hooker year. Like just true free safety, and we know Aaron Glenn loves single high. I actually really like that. And Minka can do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Minka plays a lot more like the Brian Branch role, which is something he's done and coming out. I like that as a mentor. We're going to go Thieneman to the Jets, actually ahead of Jermod McCoy. I'm curious what Jets fans think of that. All right. Detroit, up at 17. Tackle, right? I mean, they haven't really done anything. They're already listing Penei Sewell at left tackle, but that could go either way. Larry Borum is a Band-Aid. I do love Akeem Mesidor for them. I really do. But I just think this is the time to take tackle. Like, you don't know what next year's class is going to look like. You're hoping you're good again. You're picking at the bottom of the 20s, and it's much harder to find a good tackle that late than it is here. I think it's got to be a tackle. And honestly, my next best tackle is Blake Miller. If you're putting Penei Sewell back at left, I mean, it's great. I don't know why Blake's not getting more love. He's really smooth in pass pro. I think his floor and his ceiling is better than Fano as a pass blocker. And honestly, I think his run block tape was probably better than Fano's run block tape, but I can see a path for Fano as a run blocker to be better because Utah's system was very shotgun RPO oriented. They didn't really allow Fano to get off the ball and be a beast as a run blocker. But Miller has the better projection as an NFL tackle than Fano does. So we're going to take him off the board. All right. Minnesota at 18. Would love to get Dylan Thieneman. That's like the most common mock draft pick you'll see. But he's gone. So I think you could start to entertain this interior D-line class right here. This is like interior D-line in this draft. I just did my D-line rankings. If you haven't watched it yet, go check it out. I think this is probably where the conversation for any of these defensive tackles begins, is at 18. It's still a little bit early, but again, that's where the convo begins. I think Jermod McCoy would be in play for them. I don't think corner is as big of a need for them as you commonly see for them. Like, you've got Byron Murphy's fine. Isaiah Rodgers had a good year last year. They signed James Pierre, who can play. And you got to remember Josh Metellus, in an ideal situation, is also a slot corner for them in so much of their Brian Flores-based defense. So I think you certainly can take Jermod McCoy, but you don't have to. I would love to go wide receiver for them, but the board hasn't fallen well for you there. This is a really bad spot for the Vikings. It really is. The board just did not fall well for them. So I'm thinking, honestly, I'm trying to get a little bit cute with the center position. Give me a second. I'm processing some things. Because I think Fano would actually make a hell of a center. I think Logan Fano is like perfectly built to be a center. And I think Donovan Jackson could play center. I mean, Will Fries could probably play center. Someone in the chat says, do not take a center at 18, SMH. Brother, did you see what Tyler Linderbaum got? My friend. I am at the point where I am getting mad when I see people say, you can't take a guard top 10. You can't take a center top 20. Brother. Brother. That is a outdated philosophy. If you don't take them here, you're going to miss out. It's the Seahawks took their guy at 16. The Vikings had to take Donovan Jackson 23 because they knew they weren't going to be able to get that guy later. Look, I'm just saying, that's how I team build. I want elite offensive line play. And if I think any of those, if I think either Fano or Fries or Jackson can kick into center, and I don't have to start Blake Brandel as my center, that's how I build my teams. That's how I'm operating. Now, I'm not penciling in the pick. I'm just talking. Can't we just talk? All right. Let's go back to the drawing board here. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is a good player. I think the much better pick is to take Spencer Fano and figure it out. Like, full effing stop. That's what I would do. Sadiq, probably not a fit. Like, Hawkinson's not long for this team, but I don't think you're taking Sadiq. It's a tough pick. Maybe I'm just overthinking this and you just take Jermod McCoy, but I do think McCoy would be a better pick than McNeil-Warren. Is there a trade down that makes sense? I think that certainly could be in play. Like, I'm trying to think of maybe Arizona coming back up could be fun after we got all those picks. We've seen them do that before, right? They moved down and then back up to get Paris Johnson. I don't hate that. Now, that's a long way for the Vikings to move down, but this board is garbage for them. So what would that look like? You know, Arizona doesn't want to give up any picks next year. That's the problem. But I was thinking you could go get Spencer Fano for Arizona, put him at guard or center. I actually would be really excited if they did that, because then you're building the foundations there, man. Even if it's expensive. But do you think you could get, if you don't do that, do you think you could get, I mean, I don't think they're getting Fano or Honecker at 29. All right, I'm going to do it. We've seen the Cardinals do that before. This is a horrible spot for the Vikings to be. All the wide receivers are gone. Your Thieneman pick's not there. We're going to do it. So it's going to be 29 and 18, obviously. Let's look at the trade chart. So we got to make up 640, 260 points of value. So probably that third, I mean, that's it right there. I actually like that. So you're going to give pick 65 to the Vikings. Is almost on the money. 265 points of value for the first pick in the third round. I love this trade. Vikings get to reset. Probably take about the same player anyway, and you get a top 65 pick. And the Cardinals are really going to be cooking with gas after we put Fano in here to play guard for us. So let's push this one through. Very fun. All right, Spencer Fano is your right guard in Arizona next to Monroe Freeling. I think Cardinals fans are looking at this like, thank you for freaking addressing this offensive line for the first time in 10 years here. It is well overdue. And this is wonderful draft manipulation from them, from a playing the board type thing. Okay. Carolina. The Pounders at pick 19. I forgot to grab my Panthers sombrero. Before we pick for my Carolina Panthers, let's do some super chats here, and I'm going to have a sip of tea so I don't lose my whole voice here. All right. From MMD, my question is, should the Vikings consider wide receiver in this draft? Addison seems like he's probably on the way out. Great timing for that super chat, because that's a big reason why we did that trade. Any of those top 4 wide receivers for the Vikings at 18, send it in. I love that for the Vikings. I totally agree. Addison is not going to get a second contract in Minnesota because it's going to be expensive, and they're kind of sick of his antics, and they're paying Justin Jefferson. I don't think Addison's going to get an extension. So I think wide receiver is a huge need for them, if not their biggest need. But this allows you to move down where instead of taking Boston or Concepcion or Jeremy Bernard at 18, you can think about those guys at 29. And you get the 65th pick in the draft on top of it too. So that's a great, well-timed super chat for the move we just made. Dylan says, consider trading down at pick 22 for the Chargers. They only have 5 picks. That's a great point. Something to think about. Red Sea says, god-awful pick at 9. Taking a raw left tackle to immediately start at right tackle is asking for problems. I mean, if it's that big of a problem, you can just play Paris at right, which we know he can do. The right tackle, left tackle thing, it has become a very dated line of thinking. We know Paris can play right. I kind of get tired of that conversation because it's so simple for me. Number one, it's not that big of a difference, like I just said. And number two, it's just player to player. Like, there's so many different team philosophies. Like, Georgia might have felt like left tackle was more valuable, so they wanted Freeling to play left tackle. But he might be more natural on the right side. You have to have those conversations. It's so player to player. Some guys, it's no big deal. Generally speaking, just having played the position, most, and this goes back to me and my teammates when I played in high school, but almost everybody felt comfortable as a right-handed individual playing on the right side. It was more rare to have guys that wanted to or were willing to play on the left side. Like when we're talking about subbing in for reps or competing, it was a lot of times it's like, I don't want to go in on the left because I'm not as good on the left. Pretty much everybody I knew was we can play on the right. So it's very player to player. It's just who's comfortable doing it. And you can be flexible if need be. I don't think Paris Johnson's really going to care. There used to be a huge gap between the right tackles and the left tackles in terms of what you got paid. If you're like, hey, Paris, we just took this rookie. He's not comfortable at left. We know you are. Can you kick over there? We promise it's not going to, when we give you your $33 million or whatever, like we're looking at the Tristan Wirfs deal, who I guess had maybe played a year at left when they paid him, but Penei Sewell's deal, like those guys didn't get less because they played on the right, you know? So I think you can figure it out. And yeah, I disagree that it's a bad pick for Arizona at 9. Luke says, Kenyon Sadiq versus Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren versus Brock Bowers. Only his prospects coming out of college. Who are you ranking? So just in terms of the raw grade for me, those would stack Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, Kenyon Sadiq, Colston Loveland. I was a tick lower on Loveland. I didn't anticipate him putting 10 pounds on and having the play strength that he had so quickly. Blown away by what Colston Loveland was as a Bear. But if we're strictly going back to what he was as a prospect, he was a tick below even Kenyon Sadiq, who I really like, and is still there on the board, by the way. And then from Arlo, hope you've had a good day. With the Packers not having a first-round pick, how do you feel about Keith Abney in the second round? He's the corner, right? Corner is one of those positions that I just haven't gotten deep enough with. Corner and safety, I'm still really working my way to get to these guys, so I'm sorry I don't have really strong opinions on this group of guys quite yet. We will get there very soon, but I do apologize. But I will say this, just to give you some money's worth on your Packers question there, Arlo, because I am very thankful for the super chat. I do think this is a good draft for the Packers to have no first and a second and a third, because they need a DT and they need a corner. And if they're lucky to get one of my top 6 DTs at number 52, ideally Christian Miller would be our guy there, but even down to like Darrell Jackson Jr. out of Florida State, or maybe Lee Hunter makes it to him. I think it's a good year there. And then by all accounts, the day 2 crop of corners is extremely deep this year. So as far as how the board lands for the Packers, I think actually going DT in the second might make more sense, and then get a corner in the third. But we'll see. Maybe I just absolutely fall in love with some of these guys and that take changes. But that's just kind of where I'm at right now before I've really gotten into the tape on these corners. All right, we are caught up on Super Chats. Let's get back to the mock draft. I love how this is going, by the way. I think this is a really fun mock draft. So, Robert says, do you hate the Cardinals? It's okay if you do. The rationale behind it gives me a headache. Really? Dude, if I'm a Cardinals fan, I'm effing fired up about this draft. If I'm the Cardinals. Like, do people just not like line play or what? Because it's time to start building up the trenches in Arizona, man. I don't know, man. I don't understand how you could be upset about this as a Cardinals fan, to be honest. Unless you're just like really sitting there waiting for Sonny Styles with the 3rd pick and you're on that train, that's fine, but I don't know how you possibly complain about this if you're a Cardinals fan. All right, let's get back on track. The Panthers at pick 19. Keep pounding, baby. What's up, Pounders, in the chat? Can we get a keep in the chat, please, for my Carolina Panthers? All right. Someone says, you gave up David Bailey for Monroe Freeling for the Cardinals, yet I have a higher grade on Monroe Freeling than I do on David Bailey, so I don't know. I don't know, man. Let's talk some Panthers here. So, by the way, I haven't really talked about it, but them giving $30 million a year to Jalen Phillips and like 80 guaranteed or whatever it was. We could get the soundbite out for that one. You know, I don't know, Jim. I don't know about 30 million a year for Jalen Phillips. As a Panthers fan, I was like, oh, that's freaking risky, man. Good player, not a $30 million player, probably more of a $20 million a year player, but it's more about the injury risk. Like, dude, the Miami Dolphins didn't want to pay that guy, and it wouldn't have cost the Dolphins $30 million either. So that one's pretty crazy, but he's here. And then I did love the Devin Lloyd contract. That was nice. And getting Rasheed Walker for 1 year, $4 million, they made up for it. Like, they had a really exciting free agency. Because I don't think a lot of people realize that Ikem Ekwonu's not playing this year. So they definitely made up for it with some of their other contracts. But all the guarantees there are on that Jalen Phillips deal. And that's kind of scary. But it did... what their free agency did was really open the door where Arizona can go in. Sorry, I keep saying Arizona. Carolina can go in any direction, best player available. Because left tackle was a huge need. That other edge rusher was a huge need. And now they can kind of play the board as they want. The offensive line isn't, or at least it's center. You know, Luke Fortner is not, doesn't have me all that excited, but there's not a center we're taking here at 19, so we can scratch that thought. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, and that's fine. I like McNeil-Warren. I don't love him. Like, I think he's an upgrade. I think from a coverage perspective, he's nice, but that's not like the most exciting pick I am a Panthers fan. If that's the pick, it's like, okay, I think he's a good player. Kenyon Sadiq's a little bit of a harder sell for me. I think a lot of people are going to like him there. You know, I've really talked about Sadiq ideally being both your tight end 2 plus your starting slot, as that true kind of Brock Bowers role, that F player that moves around. You know, they kind of have a tight end room. Like, I don't think it'd be a bad pick to go Sadiq, but it's kind of an awkward fit for me with the players they already have in that room. Honestly, I'm between Avion Terrell to be our slot corner, or we roll the dice with one of these DTs. Like, we could really just freaking go for it and just see about Caleb Banks, who I think, if healthy, is one of the best players in this draft. Massive, massive risk. And then between him and, I mean, the odds of him and Jalen Phillips staying healthy is like minuscule. So that probably talks me out of that. You know, maybe it's Peter Woods, have him come up the road. I don't hate Peter Woods for them, who is still technically my DT1. And then then it's like, all right, Peter Woods next to Derek Brown. Tershawn Wharton that was a waste of money, man. He's here. He's making money. He was a rotational pass rush specialist that the Chiefs let go for a reason. Like, I'm not really looking at him as much. And it looks like they've kind of thinned out there. They have Bobby Brown, but they let Ashawn Robinson go. I think Peter Woods actually makes a ton of sense because you got these big-bodied guys next to him. You got your edge. You can bring him along. He just needs to be a piece in that room, and if he hits, you're really in business. So that's going to be the pick for the Panthers at 19 is Peter Woods. Good fit. Okay. Dallas Cowboys up at pick 20. Who I keep drafting Malcolm Rodriguez for, but I don't think Jermod McCoy's been there for them when I've picked. How grim is their cornerback room in Dallas? They signed Kobe Durant. Deron Bland is there. Siobhan Revelle in year 2. Year 1 was a wash for him. I think this is a pretty easy selection to go with Jermod McCoy. Fits the system, off-zone system coming over with the Fangio concepts. He's excellent at that. Lock it in. It's a good pick for Dallas. Pretty easy to do. Okay. Pittsburgh at 21. Sneaky need for Pittsburgh is linebacker. Patrick Queen is still there, but he's horrible. Like, full stop. I think the first way they could get out of Patrick Queen would be great. You know, Peyton Wilson didn't really take that leap in year 2. I mean, you really were hoping that his coverage over the middle of the field would be much better. I think a Malcolm Rodriguez, not Malcolm Rodriguez, Jacob Rodriguez would be a sneaky good pick for the Steelers at 21. And Rodriguez, by the way, is going to be a top 20 to 25 player on my board. I'm not taking Kenyon Sadiq, not taking Mesidor. Those would be my top 2 players available at this point. The other thing to consider would be Ty Simpson, which let's just have the Ty Simpson conversation because it gets hated on. It is very familiar to Bo Nix when I kept mocking him to Denver, and everybody hated that, right? Everybody hated Bo Nix to 12. There was this preconceived notion about who he was and all that. It's like, oh, he's never going to be that great. This is Kenny Pickett all over again. Bo Nix was a better prospect than Kenny Pickett, and Ty Simpson is a different prospect than Kenny Pickett. This is not you're drafting someone that's going to be locked in as being the 26th best quarterback in the draft. I think Ty Simpson is much closer in theory to similar to like Jordan Love or Jackson Dart last year. Now I had a much better grade on Jordan Love than Ty Simpson, but I don't see Ty Simpson in the same way a lot of people do. I think he is a draft, develop, traits-based quarterback that's only made 12 starts and just was extremely inconsistent. But look, the high-end stuff is legit with him. Like everyone's jumping on Dan Orlovsky. Now, I don't think Ty Simpson's better than Mendoza, but I'm probably closer to how Orlovsky's talking about Ty Simpson than how everybody else does. I think if you put him in the right situation, get him to learn how to be a pro and develop. I really do believe in the draft and develop philosophy. I think you put him here probably behind Aaron Rodgers, who's, I think, going to play again. I do. I think Rodgers wants to come back and play with McCarthy. I think it just sounds too fun for him. And I think Rodgers still played well enough last year to do that. Rodgers gets a lot of hate for being a bad mentor. Every single way along the road, that's been proven incorrect, all the way back to when in 2010, when Aaron Rodgers promised to the media, he said, if I'm ever in that position again where Brett Favre was ahead of him, I would never want to act like that again. Him and Jordan Love call each other every week. Zach Wilson came up to him after the Dolphins-Steelers game, years after they were together with the Jets. Zach Wilson came up to him. They had a great moment on camera, if anybody saw it. Total bro hug. Rodgers, for all the crap you want to give him, if you actually look into it, he has been one of the best mentoring quarterbacks in the league. Every single teammate has said he is a great quarterback to be in the same room with, to a T. So whatever you want to say about Aaron Rodgers, go for it. There is hard evidence against the idea that it would be a bad idea to put Ty Simpson behind him. And Rodgers at this point, it's not like he's going to be like, oh, you can't draft a quarterback to replace me. Like, he knows where he's at. He has that enough awareness. So I do really like the fit in Pittsburgh. And from a value perspective, I think it's about right. I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. He's a risky quarterback prospect, and Steelers fans don't like it, but I think it's because they got the Kenny Pickett PTSD, right? Ty Simpson is not Kenny Pickett. He's got a much better arm. Pickett was a good athlete, but Simpson is very good at extending plays. It's just, you got to rein the guy in. You need more down-to-down consistency from him. But I don't think people realize, like, dude, this guy was a highly recruited kid, hasn't played a ton of football, has a really strong arm, has really high-end plays on tape. And I don't think the Steelers are going to be in a position to draft in the top 10. I don't think they're going that way. So I know Steelers fans aren't a fan of it, but hey, I'm trying to make the best pick for all these teams and navigate these situations the best that we can. Broncos fans didn't like when I gave them Bo Nix every year, and look where they're at now. All right. Chargers are up at number 22. Someone in the chat had entertained a trade down because they only have 5 picks, and I like that idea. I think that the Chargers have been kind of a shotgun approach drafting team, and them moving down would make sense. For me, is there a team that maybe would come up? I was thinking maybe the Patriots come up. I think the player that teams are going to be looking to move up for in this scenario is Max Honecker. I look at Patriots at 31. I think the Texans at 28 could think about it. I think the Niners at 27 would absolutely be interested. The Browns at 24, who did not take a tackle earlier. They took Mekhi Lemon. I think a team coming up for Max Honecker would be a very, very, there's a lot of heat for that player right now, and it's legit. I mean, you guys, his athleticism at 320 pounds, I cannot stress enough. It's rare. It is absolutely rare. So maybe it's the Browns just coming up 2 spots. Maybe the Chargers want to move down further and a team wants to be more aggressive to get this guy. But I think just a little swap here makes sense. The Browns coming up just to kind of stop a team like, whoever coming up to make this. This doesn't have to be a crazy pick, but the Chargers can add another pick to the mix. It's probably just a 4th, right? Like you're talking about a 2-pick swap. You're probably 107. Is that what we're talking about here? Because it's 780, 740. It's a 40 value difference. Pick 107 is even more than that. That's an overpay for the Browns. I mean, what's 146? Where was that? That's not enough. So it has to be 80. I don't think you really have to overthink this. I think it's 107. You come up. We get our tackle. And by the way, the Browns, now, I was going to say they don't have that many needs, but they probably have more than I'm indicating. But I think Max Honecker comes in, could be left or right for the Browns because, Titus Howard has played both. Titus Howard can play anywhere. DeJuan Jones, I believe, has played both. So it could be at either left or right. But I'm telling you guys, Max Honecker is going to go in this range, and there's going to be teams calling for him. So, and I do think there's a little bit of a fall off as well after him. So I don't mind getting a little bit aggressive just to secure that for the Browns. Okay. Eagles, Kenyon Sadiq. This feels pretty easy if he makes it to you. They get Dallas Goedert on a 1-year deal. I like Kenyon Sadiq as a 12 personnel and slot wide receiver for them anyway, as a complement to Dallas Goedert. And by the way, the Eagles at 23 would absolutely take Max Honecker, by the way. Like, jumping them for the Browns is a really good move. So, it's going to be Kenyon Sadiq. Excellent fit. Love it. Okay, Chargers at pick 24 after you move down. Trying to think of what would make the most sense for them. I wouldn't be stunned for the Chargers if they are kind of like the Vikings last year, where they just look at a guard like Emmanuel Pregnon, who's a really good athlete, by the way, that can play in McDaniel's system. And I actually like Pregnon better than I liked Donovan Jackson last year for the Vikings, who went like at this exact same pick. Akeem Mesidor, someone in the chat said that would also make a ton of sense to really go for it for them. Khalil Mack's probably only going to be there one more year. But you have edge rushers. I think with what happened with that offensive line last year, and you just traded down and got an extra 4th-round pick, I think let's just feel good about getting the guard that's a really smooth player, can be weaponized in the run game and hang in there. I think Emmanuel Pregnon for the Chargers at 24. Okay, Chicago Bears at 25. Akeem Mesidor. If Akeem Mesidor is there for the Bears, lock it in, and I will be crying on the live stream. Which, by the way, if you didn't know this, I will be live for the NFL draft, reacting to every pick throughout the whole weekend. So make sure you tune in to the channel for that. But lock this one in, man. Bears are ready to win. They didn't make the Crosby trade. They need edge. It's too damn easy. I love Akeem Mesidor, and this is the furthest I've had him drop in one of my mocks. So that's like the pick that, as a Packers fan, I'm like, damn it. Someone else couldn't have taken him. Can we redo this, actually? Can we have the Chargers take him? Just to screw. Can I undo this? Please. Yeah, my email came up with the 23andMe update. All right. Bills at 26. I keep making this pick of Cassius Howell, but it does just make so much damn sense. Get some twitch in that edge rush room. Very much in the light of what Nick Bonito was for Jim Leonard's defense there. It would make a ton of sense. We don't have to lock that in every time, but it does just feel like a very easy pick to make. Linebacker is actually very much a need for them. Terrell Bernard has always been a Sean McDermott pet project, who I think is just a guy. I don't think Jim Leonard owes anything to Terrell Bernard. Dorian Williams has been fun, but hasn't really broken through. It could be a safety as well. Probably not, though, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has had a falling out. I don't think he's a long-term piece for you. They signed D. Alford. He's not great in the nickel. Like, I kind of like Avion Terrell for them. I'm just trying to think of if Jim Leonard would like him. But they started all year. I mean, he was on the defense that drafted a nickel corner in the first round, and then all year they played the undersized McMillan in the nickel. I think it's Avion Terrell to be the nickel replacement there with the new staff. That's kind of a BPA / position of value fit there. Okay. 49ers, pick 27. I would have loved to get Ehoniker here. It's not happening. Proctor, I would love to get Kyle Shanahan's thoughts on Caden Proctor and if he views him as a fit or if he says that guy's too clunky to be in my offense. Am I crazy for suggesting Jacob Rodriguez for them? I mean, I feel like they think they can develop linebackers every year, but he would be an awesome linebacker next to Fred. Dre Greenlaw was re-signed here, but look, guys, Dre Greenlaw can't stay healthy at this point. Anything you get from him is house money, and he's not the long-term plan. Like, I like Rodriguez more than I like McNeil Warren. Also, like, Fred's coming on. Well, Fred's gonna be back. He almost came back for the NFC Championship. I'm between Jacob Rodriguez and Caleb Lomu. Lomu's a project. Lomu reminds me a little bit of like when the Cowboys took Tyler Guyton in the first round. It's like that guy probably is more of a top 50 pick, but you might just have to take him anyway. Proctor's just a weird prospect, man. I have a hard time coming up with a strong opinion on Proctor, especially because he's like dropping weight, and I don't know how like I hope that that's going to be helpful for him. Keldrick Falk is definitely their kind of guy. I just don't know if they need another one of those dudes. Cassius Howell, actually, because Bryce Huff, hold on. It's Cassius Howell. I got it figured out, guys. Bryce Huff, like, up and retired to, like, remove lithium batteries from the environment. Like, shout out Bryce Huff. But that piece just got ripped out of their defense. They don't have that. I mean, you're getting Bosa back, but Howell is very Bryce Huffy. And I think they would like his energy. So that's going to be the pick. Cassius Howell. Better value than taking... I'm just not... Number one, I just don't know that Proctor can do all of the versatile blocking, run blocking stuff that Shanahan will want from him. And Lomu's just... I just don't think Lomu's a first-round tackle. I think it's just a little bit of a reach. Whereas I really like Howell. All right. For the Texans at pick 28, I do like interior D-line for them usually. I know they were a little bit active getting Logan Hall. They brought Rankins back. But they don't really have any beef. I think Lee Hunter or Christian Miller. Lee Hunter or Christian Miller make a lot of sense to me. I've kind of just pictured Lee Hunter in that defense, though. I think he's a better run defender than Christian Miller. And you got the Texas connection there. Once upon a time, they liked Tim Settle, who has kind of a similar build. It's really hard to go wrong. I think Lee Hunter is less of a risk. I think you know exactly what you're getting in Lee Hunter. as someone that honestly is probably not going to play third downs for you. And they're totally fine with that because what this allows you to do, get even better at stopping the run, because none of these guys are great run defenders. They're not. Togiai is okay. But it helps you stop the run better. It helps you keep Sheldon Rankins healthy, who like every other year this guy's hurt. They got a healthy year out of him last year, but I don't think you count on that. Logan Hall's kind of a rotational hybrid. Like he's kind of their Danico Autry replacement. He's not like a true DT. I think Lee Hunter really fits this team. Even if I have Christian Miller ahead of Lee Hunter, I think Lee Hunter makes more sense for this team. So I just think this helps you let this team's pass rush eat even better because you're going to have even less 3rd and 4s and more 3rd and 8s. All right, and then the Vikings get to pick here at 29. And you could absolutely think about a wide receiver. I might surprise some people with who I think I'm going to end up taking here. I just want to play out the scenarios. Keldrick Falk would be a very Brian Flores-esque player. I think Keldrick Falk would be a hybrid end for them, and that's kind of what I like there. You'd have to have some conversations about what weight is he playing at, and does he want to play that role because he has dropped weight from what he played at in college, but Keldrick Falk would be a good fit. You could go Emmanuel McNeil-Warren here. I don't hate that. McNeil-Warren's just interesting because he's a bigger safety. I liked his coverage stuff better than his run defense. And he's not that rangy and fast. So, like, he's a good prospect, but it's a little... And in his one big game against Kentucky, because he obviously played a lower level of competition, he was really bad against Kentucky. So, I have some hesitations with McNeil-Warren. I think this is about his range. I'm going to take Jeremy Bernard, you guys. From a fit perspective, this is absolutely perfect. My pro comp for him is Adam Thielen, for one. Not that it matters, but you talk about a guy that's going to be able to do everything else and be dependable. I don't think he gets enough credit for Bernard. Ball skills are incredible. Run after catch is so underrated. He blocks his ass off. I see him as a hybrid of Adam Thielen and Jawan Jennings. And putting that in this offense with Kevin O'Connell. Look, I'm really high on Jeremy Bernard, but I think he reminds me so much of what I said about Harold Fannin Jr. last year. People just didn't think he had the traits to be really good, and he came out and had one of the better rookie tight end seasons we've had. And this also, like, if you happen to, like, let's say Addison's value diminishes and you actually end up getting him back on a 2-year, $20 million extension, you're really putting a good group together for whoever. But, like, dude, people don't realize how needy the Vikings are at wide receiver right now in terms of depth. Like, they just don't have anybody else after Addison, who's not super dependable, and Jefferson. Like, if we pull up their wide receiver depth, they don't have an 11 personnel right now. They don't. And teams are in 11 personnel at least 60% of the time, if not 80. So this is a huge hole after they had lost Jalen Naylor. So really, I'm higher on Bernard, but I'm especially high on him as a fit in Minnesota. So pick 30 for Miami. Could see Keldrick Falk for them. because they have time to be patient. We got them their corner early. They do need wide receiver. They just lost their speed player, both of them. If you want to replace that with Casey Concepcion, but then it's like he has to be Jalen Waddle because that's the key asset you got there. You could take Denzel Boston, just get some size there. I don't think either of those are like best player available here. Proctor, maybe? Proctor could work and just kind of figure it out, whether it's left guard or right tackle, and just kind of figure it out. I don't hate that. I think I like that better than going with Casey Concepcion to try to replace Jalen Waddle. I think with this being but their wide receiver group is so bad. And they signed Tutu Atwell, so they're clearly like looking for that piece. Do you think Tutu can do it? I don't hate Jalen Tolbert. God, this group of weapons is so bad. You might just take Denzel Boston. I think you kind of just have to. That's what's so interesting about... So the Dolphins make this pick. This is the key asset they got. And then it's like, if you don't take a receiver at 11, you kind of have to just take a different wide receiver. And it's like, I get Jalen Waddle is getting older, slowly getting older, but he's not that old. It's just like, it's kind of the... It's the Family Guy meme, and it's the Titans trading away A.J. Brown to then draft a wide receiver. It's just like, I just don't love the process, but that's the position we're in. I feel like Casey Concepcion or Boston. I have Boston ranked higher. He's just not as good as Jalen Waddle. It's just hard, man. I feel like Proctor's the right pick. They pick again, right? They pick at 43. And I think we can get this cluster of wide receiver at 43, whereas we're not going to get Caden Proctor. So we're going to take Proctor, and then you're taking a wide receiver at 43. But if that ends up being Kevin Coleman Jr. or Chris Brazzell, or maybe Concepcion or Boston do start to fall, or Elijah Surratt, I'm much more comfortable with them there. We're going to take Proctor here. And then you are getting your wide receiver, Dolphins fan, and it's just going to be with this pick, which I don't know if we're going to get to today because we are at the 2-hour mark. But all right, back-to-back Bama players. Then the Patriots are up, and I always take a tackle for them, but we've had all these tackles go. You know, Lomu, like I said, I don't think Lomu is really worth... I have a top 50 grade on Lomu. I don't love him in the first round, but if you don't... It's kind of you have to look at the alternative. If you don't take Lomu, then you get no tackle of the future. Then you are just Morgan Moses, 35 years old. You got to stay healthy. And that's your future at right tackle. I do think Lomu has potential, and I like the idea of him sitting. They just don't they don't make that many guys that have the length, the movement skills, and the size to be a tackle. So that probably has to be your pick. I know Boston's common for them. It kind of just depends what you think about. Like, I almost prefer Casey Concepcion for them if you're going wide receiver. It just kind of depends what you think of Booty and Douglas. And you have Mac Hollins in there. Like, I think you absolutely could go wide receiver. Like, it's a reasonable pick, but I like what Booty did as their ex. I like Dobbs there. I think Douglas can do a lot of the same stuff as Concepcion. Concepcion is an upgrade to Douglas, and Boston is an upgrade to Booty, but those are both good players. Whereas if Morgan Moses just does what he was doing the 3 years before his age 34-year-old season and gets hurt this year, your season's like over if you're the Patriots. Not to mention Drake May's 24 years old. We got a whole future to build for here. So it's got to be Lomu for me. This is why I thought about trading up to try to get Iheanacher, but I think you're kind of backed into a position where you got to make this pick. And then you got the Seahawks up at 32. So I will say this, and I don't know if I'm going to make this pick or not, but it's very similar to what just happened with the Patriots. If you don't make this pick here with Jadarian Price, then what? Not really any interesting free agents out there. They brought in, Emmanuel Wilson? Zach Charbonnet. What was Charbonnet's injury? Did he tear his ACL in the NFC Championship? Is that what happened? Yes. So he's, maybe comes back mid-season, but you never know with ACLs. He's also in the last year of his deal. So that's tough. Yeah, trade back could be an option. I do think Keldrick Falk is their type. I think if you're talking about like long-term, like I continue to come back to just having Keldrick Falk bulk up. I just wish it was more of a easy discussion to just have him do that, because Keldrick Falk could be your long-term Leonard Williams replacement, who's not getting any younger. I don't think you need to take an edge here. Zion Young is really good. He's still there. That might have to be. There's a lot of DeMarcus Lawrence in Zion Young's game. You got, I love the future with Derek Hall, but other than that, it's pretty grim, man. And Nwosu's not going to be here forever. Lawrence is not going to be here forever. You just lost, what's his name, to the Bengals. I think it's Zion Young. You got two super powerful guys. Like Malachi Lawrence could be interesting there too, but Zion Young's just kind of like clear cut the best edge left for me. And we're gonna bring him in here. All right. I'm gonna do some super chats, and then I said we're getting to the 36th pick. It's probably all we're gonna do here for this mock. And then the next mock will, I promise, be, at least the next mock that's all me will be a full second round. But let's do some super chats here. From Red Sea and I have had some fun debates about what I've done for his Cardinals here, but thank you for the $20 super chat, my friend. I really appreciate it. Enjoying the debates. Looked at our new likely shotgun heavy system that will take advantage of athletic tackles, and purposely didn't take the athletic tackle at 9 to take a raw prospect and pass on our other needs at 29 to move back up for him. I just see things differently, man. Monroe Freeling is a better athlete than Fano, relative to his size. And he has a better long-term upside at tackle. And then we ended up getting your guy anyway to put him at guard with the short arms. And that's a whole nother debate. But I do think Fano has a higher upside projection as a guard. I guess we just see these players differently, but I really appreciate the super chat. I'm sorry you don't like my Cardinals mock for him. I want to hear from all of the Cardinals fans watching this. Do you like what I did for the Cardinals here today? Because I'd be freaking stoked. I think they had like the best draft here, in my opinion. Furbs is saying Falcons targets with no first, like a trade back. When we do the Raiders pick, we can do a speed scenario. If you guys are willing to acknowledge that not every pick is going to be perfect, but do a speed scenario where we just hit on some of these, the Colts, the Falcons, the Packers, we will do that. It's going to go fast. You're not going to love every pick that happens in between, but we will do some of the day two guys here to wrap this thing up. Hayden says, avid Twitter follower, we've gone back and forth quite a bit, especially with your choice in beer. I'm assuming you're the one that had the horrible take on Twitter, Hayden, that oh my God, I'm 2 hours into this show and I can't think of... Oh my God. It's on the tip of my tongue. Yingling. You were saying Yingling is trash, and that's a horrible take, Hayden. Yingling is like easy high floor go-to. When we had it in Charlotte, I would get it all the time. We can't get Yingling in Minnesota, so I love Yingling. I'm assuming you were the one saying it was bad, but horrible take if you were. But best second-round linebacker for my Broncos. If we don't get there, I think Trotter or Golday. I mean, ideally Jacob Rodriguez. If the draft world's just too high on Jacob Rodriguez, but I think Trotter and Golday would be great with that second pick. M. Gilmore says, hope the Lions get Malachi Lawrence in the second. That'd be a great fit. That's right around where I have Malachi Lawrence. I'm not quite on the first round train for him quite yet, but Hayden says, that's Akeem leather helmet, Mesidor to you. Shout out the Stock Exchange. Great reference. Kendall, $10 super chat, thank you, says, seeing you just mention Chris Brazzell, does him not having run any routes from the left side of the field cause any concern for you, or does it not matter that much and it's overblown as a talking point? For me, I guess that's just kind of baked into the Tennessee wide receiver offense of it all, which is already kind of a ding on him. Like, I feel like late second, early third round grade on Chris Brazzell is kind of fair with that all baked in. The fact that it wasn't on the left or right side probably just doesn't change the way I view that all that much, if that makes sense. Red Sea coming back at me again. Thank you, Red Sea, again for the super chat. But he says, if I were you, I would have taken Fano at 9, then waited for a McDonald or Parker at 29. I view Fano as a right tackle. If he fails there, we need a guard anyway. Yeah, see, I just think what we did, you got much better players and didn't give up that much to do it. Like, McDonald and Parker are second-round prospects for me. I like getting a run-stuffing nose tackle. I don't think Parker really does anything for me as the Cardinals, like, honestly. Like, I don't think he's better than Sweat. I don't think he's better than Baron Browning. I think he's an edge 3. I'm not taking that at 29. So we just have differing opinions on these players, I guess. But like, if we got Zion Young at 29, that might get me a little more excited. But I just, man, if I'm a Cardinals fan and we walk out of this thing with Fano and Freeling and an extra, well, what do we do with that pick? But I mean, you got all that extra draft capital to do that. It's just freaking stoked about it, man. I mean, you don't. Yeah, the extra capital is Fano. So, anyway, let's get through these upcoming picks a little bit quicker here. So, for the Jets at 33, I think getting a wide receiver here after we went double defense. I think Denzel Boston in that offense makes a ton of sense, right? Perfect complement to Garrett Wilson. That's pretty easy. Cardinals are back up at 34. So it's funny because Keldrick Falk probably makes sense for them, but it's just doing the frickin' Darius Robinson experience all over again. Honestly, like Christian Miller, I really like Christian Miller. I have a first to a second round grade on him. He's tied for my best DT in this draft. They ended up letting go of Tomlinson. They brought Roy Lopez back, but I like how Miller fits next to Walter Nolan quite a lot. I think the secondary is okay. We could think about corner. Yeah, I really like this for the Cardinals. Now we go DT, and Christian Miller's my pick. He's my top-rated guy. I really like Christian Miller. I think he's underrated. Then we got Tennessee at 35. I mean, we can get Rodriguez here, right? There's a lot of Dre Greenlaw in his game. You don't need the Fred Warner comp, but can you get a Dre Greenlaw comp? I like Cedric Gray. Cody Barton was not as good as you were hoping he would be last year. That wouldn't be a bad pick, but it doesn't need to be the pick. What do we do for them? We took Love. So you could go wide receiver. You could go Casey Concepcion, drop some real speed in there. But you have Shamari DK you're hoping to kind of keep bringing along. I think if you could have gotten Denzel Boston, that would have been the play. But I think at this point we can probably pivot to the defense. Or you take Chase Besantis. Full disclosure, I haven't watched Besantis yet. I'll be getting through him the next couple days. So I don't know if this is necessarily like the perfect value if I like him in this spot, like with the final eval, but I do think that offensive line needs more love than we realize, especially after you took Love. You want to make sure you have a good O-line in front of him and not have an Ashton Ginty situation from last year. But very quietly, I don't think people are paying enough attention to this piece of... Oh, okay. I stopped myself. Cordell Volson, I'm sure, very nice guy. If we're looking at this depth chart and talking about who this football player is, we have a steaming pile of shit starting at right guard right now, and that is Cordell Volson. I don't think enough people remember who their right guard was last year. It was... now I can't remember his damn name, but the veteran that's been everywhere in the NFL for the last few years. Goodness, went too far back. Kevin Zeitler was just like a rock at right guard last year, and that's gone. So, yeah, either Chase Besantis or if you like Jennings Dunker, moving him into guard. But I think we got to go guard here at 35. That's very quietly like staring me in the face. So we're going to go Chase Besantis. And, again, this is why I'm not doing a full second round mock, because I'm still finishing the write-ups on some of these guys. So maybe that would be Dunker for me. Maybe it would be Besantis. We'll see where I land on those guys. Raiders at 36. I do kind of like the idea of getting Elijah Surratt here. I don't know about ranking him 73 for the PFF board. I got Surratt very firmly in the second round. Max is saying Zeitler will likely resign. Well, okay, great. If he does, then we change that pick. But I mean, he might want to go somewhere where he can compete. We don't know where he's going to go. He might want to go back to Detroit. Who the hell knows? But I do kind of like the idea of Surratt. The idea of Bryce Lance over Elijah Surratt. I don't know how we landed at that. I will say that. That's pretty wild to me. But Raiders are a team that can really just go BPA in many ways. But a wide receiver room, Jack Bash, Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor. Obviously you have Brock Bowers, but there's so many good wide receivers that I would be pretty bummed to not walk out of this spot with one of them. And I think you got the chemistry. Surratt makes a ton of sense. The only thing is, do you believe in Jack Besh? That's what this comes down to. Because can Jack Besh develop that back shoulder chemistry so that you don't have to take Elijah Surratt? I don't know that I necessarily want to gamble that. And I think Jack Besh and Surratt, they can coexist. You don't have a ton of speed there, but Surratt is probably better on the outside. Jack Besh is probably better as like a Jawan Jennings big slot anyway. I'm thinking. Because there's probably more value at like DT. This is a sweet spot for DT. Their DTs are Jonah Lualu and Adam Butler. And sometimes Tyree Wilson. I kind of think we got to take a DT and do our best at wide receiver later and hope that Jack Besh can give you and maybe you do still get Elijah Surratt later. Maybe that's possible. But I know for sure I'm not getting a DT this good in the third round, and we really need that. So we could swing big for Caleb Banks and just pray that foot can stay healthy. Or we go with these two guys. It is, what do you want to do? Do you want a high floor nose tackle that you know exactly what you're getting? Help you get to third down where Max Crosby can do his thing? I think if you put Caden McDonald and Max Crosby next to each other, you can basically leave those two alone on one side and then load the other side and stop the run. We're going to take Caden McDonald. All right. That was the full intent of this mock, was to get to pick 36. I like everything we did. But because I like to please the people, and I still have one sip of tea left to save my voice, we are going to rapid fire through this second round. And I don't want to hear any complaints, please, about the picks that we rapid fire through these, because this is basically, we're auto simming, but they don't have the option to auto sim. We're just trying to get to the teams that didn't have first round picks. That's what we're doing. We're not trying to make the best picks for these remaining teams. We're just going to kind of look at the top five and get through this thing. So I promise we will do a full second round mock where I'm actually analyzing these picks, but we're going to go quick here, and forgive me if I'm not making great picks. This is literally just auto pick. So we're going to go CJ Allen to the Giants. We're going to go Keldrick Falk to the Texans. We're going to go Caleb Banks to the Browns. And I got to make sure I don't auto sim the pick we're actually trying to get to. I think the next team we're trying to get to is the Colts at 47, the Falcons at 48, and the Packers at 52. Okay. Chiefs, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I actually really like that because we were saying they had a need at safety. Bengals, let's go KC Concepcion. Would be freaking hilarious. Not needed, though. We'll go, let's go interior D-line. Let's go Darrell Jackson Jr. off the board. Probably a little early, but Saints 42. How about they lost Solante Taylor, Colton Hood? No, we haven't taken Jacob Rodriguez yet. We'll go Jacob Rodriguez after they lost Davis. Dolphins, we said this was going to be a wide receiver, so we will take. They get Casey Concepcion there anyway. Great. We were talking about them doing that at 29, so that worked out great for the Dolphins. Jets, let's go Cisse. Get him another corner in there. Ravens, TJ Parker. Sure. Bucks, 46. I think we took a wide receiver. Let's get them an edge rusher in there. So how about Malachi Lawrence to the Bucks at 46? And then we have the Colts. So this is one we're actually paying attention to. So the Colts don't have their first round pick. And the reason they made that trade for Sauce is like their team's in a pretty good spot. I think a safety could make sense because they lost Nick Cross. D-line would make sense for them, but I don't know that you're taking any of these guys left there at the interior. Edge, maybe. Like Gabe Jackas, my pro comp on him is Kwity Paye, especially for like what he would be. They did, they're hoping JT Tuimoloau can take that leap. They did get Arden Key. They brought in Michael Clemens. They actually gave him money. Edge is not as big of a need as you would think. I think interior is probably a bigger need. Honestly, corner's not a bad idea because the probability of all these guys, especially, Kenny Moore's not going to be here forever. Shavarius Ward gets hurt all the time. I don't think we need to go line. Wide receivers in a pretty good spot. Although you could certainly add to the wide receiver room. You know what? This is going to be actually Elijah Surratt, who I compare to Michael Pittman. They trade away Michael Pittman. I think as a number 2 to Alec Pierce. He's a better version of Nick Westbrook-Akine. They've shown us that that's the role. They want that big-bodied guy that has inside-out flexibility. Their depth is really poor. In-state, Elijah Surratt makes a lot of sense for the Colts. Okay, the Falcons at 48. Falcons' defense is actually kind of nice at this point. Corner, I don't love the corners. Mike Hughes, Billy Bowman, Darnay Holmes, Clark Phillips. It's like we could definitely get a corner here and just keep beefing up this defense. I think some wide receiver depth absolutely could be in play. I like the Jahan Dotson signing, but I think we probably dip into the wide receiver pool here for them. And Chris Brazzell would be fun. Zachariah Branch is kind of the in-state pick there. Man, I got to go all the way down here to find Kevin Coleman. This is the biggest sleeper in the draft right here, by the way. Kevin Coleman Jr. Getting no day 2 buzz. And he is still my wide receiver 9 with a true second-round grade. And would be a great fit in Atlanta. Chris Brazzell's kind of fun, man. Especially if it's Penix, who can launch it. Feels like that's their biggest need. Or, no, I think the O-line. There's no interior D-line I like here. Linebacker's kind of a need. Linebacker's kind of a need there. There's some interesting options for Atlanta, but I think we go corner after talking all that through, or linebacker. I got to watch these two guys, so I don't know if this is too early for Jake Golday or Josiah Trotter. I've certainly seen some hype for them, but I think corner's probably going to be the better player to get, like Colton Hood or Chris Johnson. Like one of those two guys probably makes the most sense. I think that makes more sense than taking like Chris Brazzell here, where I think you can wait at wide receiver. I don't know that you can wait here necessarily. So let's go Colton Hood. Okay, Vikings. I think we go get him a safety. Like AJ Halsey would make sense. Lions. Gabe Jackas off the edge would make sense. They need someone else over there. Panthers at 51. We took Woods. Should we just stick D'Angelo Pons in the slot for them? Let's do it. That's really fun. And then we got my Packers at 52. So I've talked about this. Ideally, I'm able to get a DT here. And I know I took Darrell Jackson a little bit early here, but I think Darrell Jackson probably goes second round. I mean, he's got really exciting traits, the types of traits that I don't think wait that long in the draft at DT. But for the Packers, it's like if you can get Christian Miller or Darrell Jackson at 52 and then go corner in the third round, that would be ideal. But those guys went here. So I do look at corner, and I think, like, again, got to watch the tape, but there's been a lot of connections between, like, Chris Johnson here. I think if he's there, a lot of people seem to like him. So excited to get into the tape on Chris Johnson, but we'll get the corner there and then hopefully find someone we like at DT in the third round. And then we are just trying to get to, the Broncos pick at 62? So let's rapid fire some picks here. We'll go linebacker for the Steelers. We'll get a tackle. Let's grab Jennings Dunker. For the Eagles, we'll go edge. For the Chargers, we'll get a Michigan. Derek Moore there, really good player. Jags. Oh, the Jags don't have a first. So we stop here. So Jags did a good job like filling out their needs. Linebacker is a big need. So like Josiah Trotter, kind of would make sense as a replacement for Devin Lloyd. It just kind of depends what they feel about my guy out of Florida that's down there. Ventrell Miller is a nice player. I think Ventrell Miller and Foye Alukon's like a decent linebacker room still. But probably talking about like interior O-line or linebacker for the Jags. And with all the linemen that have gone, I think we take Josiah Trotter. Okay, the Bears at pick 57, we will go with probably a safety, right? They signed one safety. They didn't sign two. Yeah, they got Cam Lewis listed as their second safety. That's not going to happen. So we'll go Kamari Ramsey for the Bears. We'll go Chris Bell to the Niners. He's such a Niners wide receiver. Very Debo-esque in many ways. Then we got the Texans, who did not take an offensive lineman the first time around. Let's get them a center. Let's get them Connor Lew. And then we got the Bears. up again from that Bills pick. Maybe even wide receiver depth. The Bears could use another wide receiver here with this pick, the one they got for DJ Moore. But okay, we love Odunze and Burden. Then it's undrafted rookie from last year, Jade Walker, Khalif Raymond, and that's it. So honestly, getting a wide receiver here would make sense. Dude, putting Chris Brazzell in that room with Caleb's arm, yeah, sign me up for that. And just see what happens. Then Rams at 61. Drew Aller? No, the Rams are going for it. So Jadarian Price is still out there, by the way. Just saying. That's probably going to be our Broncos pick at 62. But, God, the Rams are just so loaded that it's hard to make a pick for them, especially when I haven't watched all these guys quite yet. But I think maybe some edge depth. Can never go wrong with some edge depth. Romello Height would be their kind of guy. Our Mason Thomas would be their kind of guy. Just to get a little extra pass rush juice. Actually, Grayson Halton. I feel like they need more interior than edge. Grayson Halton, with his movement skills, is just another freak athlete and kind of a different type than that they don't have. So he would actually make a lot of sense for the Rams. And then, yeah, Broncos at 62. I think with the linebackers have kind of gone. I know Lewis is undersized, but interesting. I think if Jadarian Price makes it to you at 62, you do this again. I know they took RJ Harvey, but always was a weird pick. And I think Price and Harvey can coexist. They signed J.K. Dobbins, but bro, I don't know that they make this pick necessarily in real life, but dude, 2 years, $20 million for J.K. Dobbins who can't stay healthy, and RJ Hart, they have overinvested in both of their running backs. So I don't know that they would make this pick, but there's no way I'm giving J.K. Dobbins that much money, and there's no way I believe that RJ Harvey is the RB of your future. I think Jadarian Price, ton of upside. That's the pick I would make if I'm the Broncos here with how the board has fallen. So to me, it would take a year and you would forget that RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins exist. I think he's just so much better than those guys. Then the Patriots, just to finish this, so that we can get to the end of this and maybe get our final picture. But how about Eli Stowers? They lost the other Hooper. They got room for a second tight end in there with some speed. And then for the Seahawks, it's a bump. I mean, the Seahawks maybe would trade up for Jadarian Price in this point, but we're obviously not focusing on them. So let's give him Emmett Johnson, who I actually really like Emmett Johnson as a late second, early third round pick. So you get your running back there. And I actually will say, if the Seahawks do miss out on Jadarian Price, Emmett Johnson is the other back in this class that I think is a good starter day one. So I'm fully on board with the Seahawks going Emmett Johnson. Okay. We did it 2.5 hours. Not too bad for a 2-round mock draft. It's 1.5 round mock draft, but I'm definitely going to download this one because I really like that first round mock. I think we did a great job talking things through. We only pissed a few people off, which is pretty good for a mock draft. And even the one main person we pissed off was Red Sea, who was great with the super chats. And speaking of super chats, I do have one more in here from Too Fast for You. Lions could really get screwed if there isn't a tackle they like at 17. Free agency has been bringing in a solid center and a ton of veteran fringe starters. I would have rather kept Decker or signed a good tackle and save depth for after the draft. I will say, like, the Lions are in a pretty good spot. I don't think they're going to get screwed. The odds that Maui Noa, Freeling, Miller, Fano, and Ianacher are all gone is almost non-existent. I think you get one of those 5 at 17 and take it to the bank and feel pretty good about it. And especially if you want someone that can play right away, I mean, Maui Noa is going to go, but like getting Blake Miller at 17, I don't think anyone's going to take him before that. And that's just such a good floor at tackle. So in terms of being good now and not getting screwed with a rookie in there that's going to get Jared Goff killed. But Grim will do. Thank you for sneaking in there with a little TFGO comment. Hey, we're 2.5 hours into this thing. Why not plug my Madden League? And if anybody, I think our wait list is empty right now. So if anybody wants to get in on our 32-man online Madden League, where I'm the Raiders, we're heading into our 4th year. Here is the application link in the chat. So I'll plug that real quick if anybody wants to get in on our Madden League. But thank you guys so much. 2.5 hours. Longer than I thought we would go, but that's a surprise to literally nobody. Very fun stream. Excellent mock draft. And I think for our mock 4.0, it will be a pre-recorded 2-round mock draft with the highlights and that kind of stuff, where I spend a lot of time to really like pre-rehearse the perfect mock draft. But as far as doing something live, I will say, man, this mock is really a good one, I think. So as far as mock drafts go. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Please do hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Cheers.